Once upon a time in a small Jamaican village, there lived the cleverest of all creatures, Anansi the spider. Anansi was known far and wide for his cunning tricks and mischievous nature, but despite all his trickery, there was one thing he desired more than anything else: wisdom. Anansi wanted to be the wisest creature in the world, so that no one could outsmart him, ever. Now, in those days, wisdom was not as plentiful as it is today. It was kept in a large, magical pot, hidden away at the top of the tallest cotton tree deep in the forest. The pot was said to contain all the wisdom of the world, and whoever possessed it would be the wisest of them all. But there was a catch: the pot could only be retrieved by someone clever enough to figure out how to reach it. Anansi, being the clever spider that he was, decided that he would be the one to claim the pot of wisdom. So one early morning, before the sun had even risen, Anansi set out on his quest. As he approached the cotton tree, Anansi looked up and saw the pot hanging high up in the branches, glistening in the early morning light. "Ah, there it is," Anansi said to himself, rubbing his legs together in anticipation. "Soon, all the wisdom of the world will be mine." But as Anansi began to climb the tree, he realized that this task was not as easy as it seemed. The tree was tall, the bark was rough, and the branches were slippery. Anansi slipped and slid, struggling to make his way up, but he was determined not to give up. Just then, along came Anansi's friend, Brother Rabbit. Brother Rabbit was hopping through the forest, nibbling on some fresh greens, when he spotted Anansi clinging to the side of the tree. "Anansi, me friend, what you doing up, dear?" Brother Rabbit called out, looking up at the spider with a curious expression. Anansi, not wanting anyone else to know about the pot of wisdom, quickly thought up a lie. "Me just doing me morning exercise, Brother Rabbit. You know, it's important we keep fit and healthy." Brother Rabbit, who was a bit of a jokester himself, chuckled and said, "Exercise, you say? Well, you looking like you about to fall any minute now. You sure you don't need a hand?" Anansi shook his head furiously. No, me fine. Me just stretching me legs." Brother Rabbit laughed and continued on his way, leaving Anansi to his struggle. Anansi kept climbing, huffing and puffing, but every time he got close to the pot, he would slip back down a few branches. After what felt like hours, Anansi finally reached the branch where the pot of wisdom hung. Panting and out of breath, he carefully edged his way toward it. "Me did it. Me going to be the wisest creature in the world," Anansi said to himself, reaching out to grab the pot. But just as his legs touched the pot, the branch beneath him cracked and broke. Anansi, with the pot in his grasp, tumbled down through the branches, hitting every single one on the way down. Finally, he landed on the ground with a thud, the pot of wisdom rolling away from him. Dazed and bruised, Anansi sat up and looked at the pot. It was still intact, but it had rolled over to the edge of a steep hill. Before Anansi could react, the pot began to wobble, and then, much to Anansi's horror, it started to roll down the hill. "Noo!" Anansi screamed, scrambling to his feet and chasing after the pot. Down the hill it went, picking up speed as it rolled over rocks, past trees, and straight toward the village. Anansi ran as fast as his legs could carry him, but no matter how fast he went, the pot was always just out of reach. "Come back here. Me not done with you yet," Anansi shouted, but the pot of wisdom just kept rolling, as if it had a mind of its own. As the pot neared the village, it suddenly veered off the path and headed straight for Miss Lou's house. Now, Miss Lou was the oldest and wisest woman in the village, known for her no-nonsense attitude and quick wit. She was outside sweeping her yard when she saw the pot rolling toward her. "What on earth is this?" Miss Lou muttered, watching as the pot of wisdom came to a sudden stop right at her feet. Anansi, panting and exhausted, finally caught up and skidded to a halt in front of Miss Lou. "Miss Lou, me beg you, give me back me pot," he pleaded, trying to catch his breath. Miss Lou looked at the pot, then at Anansi, and then back at the pot. "Your pot, you say? And what you planning to do with all this wisdom, Anansi?" Anansi, not one to admit defeat, quickly spun another lie. "Me just want to use it for good, Miss Lou. Me going to share the wisdom with everyone in the village." Miss Lu raised an eyebrow, clearly not believing a word. Is that so? Well, Anansi, if you really want the wisdom in this pot, you have to answer me one question. Anansi, desperate to get his hands on the pot, nodded eagerly. Anything, Miss Lu. Ask me anything. Miss Lu smiled slyly and said, Alright, Anansi. Tell me, what is the true measure of wisdom? Anansi's mind raced. He thought about all the clever tricks he knew, all the schemes he had pulled off in the past, but none of those seemed to be the right answer. Finally, he blurted out, the true measure of wisdom is how much you can outsmart everybody else. Miss Lu chuckled and shook her head. Oh, Anansi, wisdom isn't about outsmarting people. It's about understanding, kindness, and knowing when to share what you have learned with others. Anansi stared at Miss Lu, surprised by her words. So you saying me have it all wrong? Miss Lu nodded. Sometimes the greatest wisdom comes from admitting you don't know everything and being willing to learn from others. Anansi, for once, was speechless. He realized that all his cleverness and tricks had only gotten him so far. True wisdom wasn't about being the smartest or the trickiest, it was about being wise enough to know when to ask for help and when to listen to others. With a sigh, Anansi looked at the pot of wisdom and then back at Miss Lu. You right, Miss Lu. Maybe me don't need all the wisdom fee myself. Miss Lu smiled and handed the pot back to Anansi. That's the first wise thing me hear you say all day, Anansi. Anansi took the pot, but instead of running off with it, he sat down right there in Miss Lu's yard. Miss Lu, would you do me the honor of helping me share this wisdom with the village? Miss Lu beamed. Of course, Anansi. It would be me pleasure. And so, with Miss Lu's help, Anansi shared the wisdom from the pot with everyone in the village. He learned that being wise wasn't about knowing everything, but about understanding that sometimes the best thing you can do is ask for help and share what you have learned. From that day on, Anansi became known not just for his clever tricks, but also for his willingness to listen and learn. And whenever anyone in the village needed advice, they knew they could always go to Anansi or Miss Lu for a bit of wisdom, and maybe even a good laugh.